Hi, I'm Alex Lifeson of Rush, and I'd like to welcome you to my segment of the iVideo Tunes. I'm 52 years old. I've been playing guitar since I was 12, so 40 years if the math is correct. I have to say that I absolutely love playing the guitar. I've played pretty much my whole career in one band in Rush. We formed the band in 1968 on September 18th, so I just turned 15, and I can't believe that I've been in the same place. Well, I've been in many places, but in the same band all this time. It's been an incredible journey for me as a musician and as a person. Everything in my life has been centered around the band. Everything is connected to what the band does. I don't think back on the summer of this year or that year. I think back on the tour of this year or that year. And that's how I reference pretty much everything in my life. And I think you'd probably find that Geddy and Neil would agree that they have those same kind of references. I think this is a really great opportunity for me to show you some stuff that I do and the way that I play. It's always been fascinating to me to read in some of these music books, tablature books, how my parts have been worked out. And generally they're fairly accurate, but I do have a tendency to play things a little bit differently that doesn't always translate well in those things. And I've also looked at some of them and thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I should play it like that. That makes a little more sense. I don't read music that well. I studied classical guitar when I was 18 for about a year and a half, and I enjoyed it very, very much. But at that point in the band's career, we started to work a lot. My classical guitar teacher, Elliot Goldner, who was a very good friend from school and an excellent teacher himself, was in a motorcycle accident, and so everything kind of worked out so that I couldn't continue with. So I sort of stopped there and maintained playing and practicing, and every once in a while I pick up a piece and learn it, but over the years it just kind of drifted. I still try to play, but I don't quite as much anymore in the classical area. But I think it's important to really be diversified and learn all sorts of things. I'm playing a lot of acoustic guitar lately, really, really enjoying that, playing around with alternate tunings, and it's a wonderful way to find new expression, picking up an instrument, and maybe this is the way it is for a lot of you, but picking up an instrument and having absolutely no idea what you're doing with it. And that's the great thing about some of these alternate tunings. You tune it, and of course, all these chords that you learn don't mean a thing, and it's very challenging and keeps you on your toes. So I guess really what I'm saying is you can play guitar forever and ever and ever and forever love it and enjoy it. It's a wonderful, wonderful instrument to express yourself on. I have many friends who were in bands when they were teenagers or in their youth, and went on to have more normal lifestyles. And to this day, they still get together and play on the odd weekend with some buddies, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. And perhaps that's what you're like. You're looking to learn how to play some of these songs that you grew up with because you love playing the guitar, and that's a great thing. And I hope you get a chance to learn something from me today. I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, but I had an interest in it a long time. I think I became much more serious about listening to music when I was about 10. I think by the time I was 12, I was pretty sure that music was where I wanted to spend the rest of my life, which I guess is kind of unusual. You kind of don't make those career decisions at such a young age. But there was something particularly about the guitar that just really captured my heart, and I love to listen to classical music, classical guitar music. My brother-in-law played guitar. He played a little bit of flamenco, and I borrowed his guitar from time to time. My parents bought me my first guitar for Christmas the year that I was 12 years old, and it was a Kent made in Japan. And of course, these aren't around anymore. But I think it cost about $25, and it was an acoustic guitar with kind of like a classical guitar, but with steel strings on it. The strings were located somewhere within 4 or 5 inches above the neck, and it was very, very difficult to play. But it was actually a good way to start. And of course, I learned those first few chords, that E chord, that A chord, and then the D chord. And much of the popular music at the time comprised of those chords. Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones and countless others. That Fade Away. A lot of my influences were influences that I guess my generation all connected to. Hendrix was huge, and when Hendrix came along, I like to listen to that first wave of English music, the Searchers, Dave Clark 5, a little bit of the Beatles. I wasn't a huge Beatles fan, I was more of a Stones fan then. But then the Who came along, and I just really loved what I heard. Pete Townshend's playing was great, Roger Daltrey's and Keith Moon. They were such a great band with such great songs. And they were so more in your face. They weren't as polite and pleasant as some of those other British bands were. And of course, Hendrix came along, and that changed everything. That was the end of listening to the Beach Boys and all of that kind of music that I kind of listened to at that time. And continued my exploration in the whole acid psychedelic era, the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, bands like that. And then progressed to Cream, John Mayall. We spent a lot of time listening to Cream. Geddy and I, we used to practice all those Cream songs. And that was really a lot of fun. We painted our guitars. I painted mine to look sort of like Eric Clapton's SG. It didn't look anything like it, but it was a lot of fun to do. And Ged painted his bass, and we reckoned we were like them. And then Zeppelin came along, and we really fell in love with Zeppelin, and they were probably the biggest influences on us. Certainly Jimmy Page was the biggest influence on me. I loved his playing, and I loved everything that he represented, his look, his style of playing, the looseness in his playing. I really learned an awful lot from him, probably more than anyone else. But at the same time, Peter Townsend was a big influence on me, and Hendrix obviously, and Jeff Beck. So, over the years, I think your influences become really quite diverse. Even today, I'm influenced by people that I see and hear play. In fact, recently I went to see David Gilmour from, as you know, from Pink Floyd on his On an Island tour. And his playing is just so beautiful. It's soulful, it's articulate, it's really dynamic. The band sounded great. He's dedicated to quality in every aspect of the presentation of the show, and I was moved by that. And so maybe I'll start writing some songs in a slow tempo 6, because that's really, he does do a lot of that. But even at this stage in my life, I can still be influenced by other players, and perhaps today, with what you learn from me, you too will be influenced by another player. The writing process with Rush, and with me, I guess it's been a really interesting experience. Geddy and I have been writing together for, oh my God, 37 or 38 years now. We're currently writing for a new record. At this point, we've written about 7 songs, on our way to about a dozen, I guess. And for us, the joy of writing is just sitting down and playing. And basically that's what we do. We just pick up our instruments, we jam for a bit, and then hit Pro Tools, or Logic is the software that we use, into record, and then we record everything that we play. That gives us a starting point, and from there we begin to build a song. So it's quite easy once you've got a good inspirational starting point to start coming up with other parts and other sections. And typically for us, we follow that route. And with the software available today, you can very easily move things around, cut and paste, and get a sense of what the arrangement for a song can be and ultimately will be. From there, we will work with lyrics that Neil's provided. Most often when we start a writing project, Neil will have already written 5 or 6 songs lyrically. And as we begin the musical portion of it, we start to marry certain lyrics to certain songs, obviously. Not everything works for everything, and you have to really find the right match. Once we've established that match, Geddy tends to edit lyrics as he goes along. It's important to him to be able to sing someone else's words as if they were his own. So that whole editing process goes back many stages between Geddy and Neil, and they have a wonderful relationship with that. Neil's absolutely open to change, and Ged makes a lot of really great suggestions on where to take a song to make it perhaps less personal, more universal. And this kind of continues right up to when lyrics are done. It's a really great working process for us. It's a very democratic relationship that we have in the band. Nothing really gets done unless we all agree upon it. And the whole writing process is usually done together. Geddy and I will be in one room working, Neil will be in another room. And then we'll meet at lunch, or we'll meet at some point in the day and discuss different aspects of the arrangement and the songs. And Neil quite often has some very useful ideas for arrangement as well. From there, we've got our outline of a song, and then we start adding the recording element. Neil will come in and he'll play to our guide tracks, and then we'll start replacing tracks, build up the songs like that. I have searched for years for just the right amp sound, and it's always a difficult thing because your tastes change, your playing changes, it evolves, and you look for different things. I know that I've gone through many different stages in my career playing in Rush. We went through a time in the mid-'80s where we were really exploring keyboards, and there's always a bit of a conflict with keyboards and guitar. They kind of occupy the same sonic range. So, I went to active pickup guitars in that period. And an active pickup is just one that's got a battery powered, and it's a single coil, and it's a very bright, clean, clear sound. And I thought that that's what I needed at that time to kind of cut through some of the dense keyboard stuff that we were doing. I much prefer something like this, which is a more traditional humbucker style. It's a little thicker and a little warmer sounding. Amps are always, there's so many great amps. They're coming up with all new designs, and a lot of great new designs are based on old designs. It's hard to beat that old Marshall 50 sound, and I remember having a great one that I bought, made payments on it. I couldn't afford it back when we were playing bars in the early 70s, but sadly, I got rid of it when I got some other new stuff, and that's what I've always done. I'd get new stuff and get rid of it, and I never expected to be doing this 30 years later, and I wish I had that stuff now. I'd be a very rich man if I did have all those old amps. But over the years, I've been searching for a sound that I'd be happy with and could live with, that had the kind of flexibility and versatility that I was looking for in a sound. And I think I've really come up with it with the Hughes and Kettner amp. It's this is the Alex Lifeson Signature Edition, which I'm very proud of. I've been using the Triamp for a couple of tours, and very happy. It's a great sounding amp, really well built, very reliable. It's made in Germany. What I love about this particular amp is that I've got 3 stages. There's a clean sound, a dirty, tough sound, and then a very overdriven sound. And in fact, I use the third stage just really as an effect stage, very, very overdriven, and just bring it in for certain things that I want that kind of character for. For me, I came up in a single channel amp. That's the way I learned. So if you wanted a clean sound, you just turn the guitar down. And I generally play with the guitar on about 7.5. So if I want to have a tough sound, I kind of set the my guitar gain at about 7.5, and then I adjust the amp so I get the kind of thickness and power and character that I want. And then I've got, this space from 7.5 to 10 where I solo and I want to get a little more sustain, or I want to step it up a little bit. And then I can achieve that without having to step on another switch or introduce another sound or whatever. And I think that's been a part of my sound and a characteristic of my sound, in that it's a bit restrained. It's not always, super distorted and fuzzy, and I try to get, more of that power from my hand. And I think that's a really good way to learn to play guitar. The great thing about doing the signature series is that we've taken a portion of the cost of the amp and donated it to UNICEF. And so far we've donated over $11,000, and I know we've got another fund building for a second payment. So it's nice to be able to put something back in and hopefully give children an opportunity, whether it's in music or otherwise, to develop and grow. So I'm really proud of that work that we're doing with the people at Hughes and Kettner. They're terrific people, and I'm very happy to be associated with them. So, I'd highly recommend one to you. And you're going to be helping someone too if you buy it. This whole idea of the iVideo tunes is really a terrific idea. It's a wonderful way to connect with other players who are interested to learn more about how a song is constructed, how a song is built, how it's played, particularly when you have the artist show you. It's a wonderful opportunity for a lot of people who are amateur players to get to see what goes on. And it's also a great opportunity for artists, me, I think, to express to you what it's like to play in a band, where I come from, what I've done. And I hope you really have a great time with it and you really enjoy it. I know that I have. Hi, this is Alex Lifeson of Rush, and today we're going to work on The Spirit of Radio. This song was written in 1979, I think. It's from our Permanent Waves album. It is also one of our songs that was quite popular at radio. That's a relative term with us. But when we wrote this, it was really about the state of radio, particularly FM radio at the time, which was really a free format. It was really all about the spirit of radio, where it really came from. It was about those DJs that used to talk to you and play hours of music without interrupting you, and they played what they wanted, and it was a really wonderful time in radio. And I think probably by the end of the 70s, that was kind of drifting away from what radio was about. It was becoming more commercialized and more formatted, more playlists and things like that, and that free nature was slowly disappearing. So it was kind of our statement on what we loved about the way it was at radio. When we constructed the song, it opens with this quick guitar part, which was supposed to represent sound waves, radio waves bouncing around and zipping around. And the song itself is a very up-tempo kind of song. And it's classic in some of its construction, in a little reggae part later in the song. The verses are quite traditional. And then we've got the choruses that are, again, going back to that idea of the radio waves bouncing around. And it's very frenetic. And it was a lot of fun writing this song and putting it together, because the parts were really quite different from each other. And then once the arrangement came together, it all kind of made sense. So it was recorded at Le Studio, a studio that we've done a lot of work at in Quebec, just north of Montreal, about an hour north of Montreal. Really beautiful space in the world on a lake with mountains. And we've utilized that lake and the mountains for a lot of effects, particularly on guitar stuff. And I think Neil had his drums out there once and took some pictures on a little barge out on the lake, so it was pretty cool. Fortunately, the studio is gone, like many great studios, as times have changed. Obviously, we're sitting here in my studio, recording on Pro Tools, and anybody can buy a Pro Tools rig and record your own record. So things have really changed quite a bit in the world of recording. We'll start with the introduction. It intros with the guitar playing this little piece that's quite frenetic. It's made up of hammer-ons and pulls, and it has kind of a almost Celtic feel to it. And the real key with this part is to stay really loose in your hand and kind of use your arm as a pendulum. And the part is, it starts at the F sharp, which is the second fret on the high E string, and it's so I hope you can see that closely. It's not really that difficult a part, but the key is to really get that flow going. So it's get that arm going. The problem that I have playing this is that there's a tendency to speed up, and Neil and Geddy are playing some very syncopated parts in that intro, and they mark those points a little differently than you would think counting it out. So the tendency is to speed up, and you have to be really careful about that. I try to be careful about that. I'm not always successful, and I get some dirty looks from them from time to time, but that is the opening. So and then the next move is to the let's see, F sharp on the 4th fret on the D string. Okay, and this is just like a typical rock and roll kind of riff, because really the song is about all different kinds of music, to a degree anyways, and it harks back to that, kind of rock and roll kind of vibe. So what I like to do is I sort of bar my finger, my index finger across the 2nd fret. That way you get the sense that there's a lead line as well as a rhythm line behind it. And you play that for that pattern. And then we end up at the 7th fret playing on an E chord. And then we play a barred B major, but with the E and the B string ringing open. Not here, but here. So. And then a C sharp, slide down to the G sharp, and then it's this lovely chord. I don't know the name of it, but it's a great chord. And then up to the A, to the B, and then just repeat that. And that's basically what that whole first verse is. And that's after that first kind of intro. Then the vocal comes in. Don't you just love those notes ringing out? This is between the vocal. Bam, bam. And then now you bar the chords. And instead of playing this chord here, we play it here. Back to the open after the vocal. To the E.
Invisible airwaves crackle with life. Bright and tender, bristle with the energy.
To the E. Now we wait as that synthesizer sequencer comes in, and then it's back to the. And we follow that right up until the next verse.
All this machinery making modern music can still be open-hearted. Not so fully charted, it's really.
So now we're at the second verse. We've started off with our little Celtic thing. We've played the first verse. We played the chorus. We come back out of that Celtic thing, which is what makes up that chorus, and we come back into the second verse. Now, the difference in the second verse from the first verse is that you play the part that you were playing in the B section of that first verse, in that you're playing these bar chords rather than the open chord. So what we do in the second verse really is we reverse the order that we had in the first verse. In the first verse, we had those open strings for the first half, and then the second half, we played the bars. The beginning of the second verse is the bars, and then we go to the open strings. And here we have more of a punk feel to this verse. So it's then open. And that's the second verse. And then back into the. Up until the end of that second chorus. And then we go to the, what I guess the middle eight or the midsection.
A modern-day warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Hi, I'm Alex Lifeson of Rush, and I'd like to welcome you to my segment of the iVideo Tunes. I'm 52 years old. I've been playing guitar since I was 12, so 40 years, if the math is correct. I have to say that I absolutely love playing the guitar. I've played pretty much my whole career in one band, in Rush. We formed the band in 1968 on September 18th, so I just turned 15, and I can't believe that I've been in the same place. Well, I've been in many places, but in the same band all this time. It's been an incredible journey for me as a musician and as a person. Everything in my life has been centered around the band. Everything is connected to what the band does. I don't think back on the summer of this year or that year. I think back on the tour of this year or that year. And that's how I reference pretty much everything in my life. And I think you'd probably find that Getty and Neil would agree that they have those same kind of references. I think this is a really great opportunity for me to show you some stuff that I do and the way that I play. It's always been fascinating to me to read in some of these music books, tablature books, how my parts have been worked out, and generally they're fairly accurate, but I do have a tendency to play things a little bit differently that doesn't always translate well in those things. And I've also looked at some of them and thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I should play it like that. That makes a little more sense. I don't read music that well. I studied classical guitar when I was 18 for about a year and a half, and I enjoyed it very, very much. But at that point in the band's career, we started to work a lot. My classical guitar teacher, Elliot Goldner, who was a very good friend from school, and an excellent teacher himself, was in a motorcycle accident, and so everything kind of worked out so that I couldn't continue with. So I sort of stopped there and maintained playing and practicing, and every once in a while I pick up a piece and learn it, but over the years it just kind of drifted. I still try to play, but I don't quite as much anymore in the classical area. But I think it's important to really be diversified and learn all sorts of things. I'm playing a lot of acoustic guitar lately, really, really enjoying that, playing around with alternate tunings, and it's a wonderful way to find new expression, picking up an instrument, and maybe this is the way it is for a lot of you, but picking up an instrument and having absolutely no idea what you're doing with it. And that's the great thing about some of these alternate tunings. You tune it, and of course all these chords that you learn don't mean a thing. And it's very challenging and keeps you on your toes. So I guess really what I'm saying is you can play guitar forever and ever and ever and forever love it and enjoy it. It's a wonderful, wonderful instrument to express yourself on. I have many friends who were in bands when they were teenagers or in their youth and went on to have more normal lifestyles. And to this day, they still get together and play on the odd weekend with some buddies, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. And perhaps that's what you're like. You're looking to learn how to play some of these songs that you grew up with because you love playing the guitar, and that's a great thing. And I hope you get a chance to learn something from me today. I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, but I had an interest in it a long time. I think I became much more serious about listening to music when I was about 10. I think by the time I was 12, I was pretty sure that music was where I wanted to spend the rest of my life, which I guess is kind of unusual. You kind of don't make those career decisions at such a young age. But there was something particularly about the guitar that just really captured my heart, and I love to listen to classical music, classical guitar music. My brother-in-law played guitar. He played a little bit of flamenco, and I borrowed his guitar from time to time. My parents bought me my first guitar for Christmas the year that I was 12 years old, and it was a Kent made in Japan. And of course, these aren't around anymore. But I think it cost about $25, and it was an acoustic guitar with kind of like a classical guitar, but with steel strings on it. The strings were located somewhere within 4 or 5 inches above the neck, and it was very, very difficult to play. Now the solo, I play a Crybaby wah-wah pedal, and use the vibrato arm on the guitar, and it starts way up here at the 15th fret on the B string. So we come out of this, and then so And then you kind of push those two strings together. And then I usually try to hit the, when I say try, I mean I try to hit the G string open and let it go down, and then I usually hit the harmonic so it comes back up. And then from there, it's to the 9th fret. Let's see, the B on the D string and the D on the G string, and they're just that move, sliding back and forth with that index finger, but keeping that B in that one place. And then the same move up to the, 14th fret. Same crazy stuff. And then just a pull from the, the G, E, D. And then on the E, on the B string way up high here, it's just pushing that up and then back into the. So. Sounds a little messy on this very uninspiring, clean sound, but when you have it turned up and you got the wah-wah going, it's pretty exciting. So, we've come out of the solo, down, back into this. And then the guys drop out, and it's just me. And then you go home. Hi, I'm Alex Lifeson of Rush, and this is the performance track of The Spirit of Radio.